Hello, hi Neil.
I just got off, there was a diff H&T SIG presentation by a company by the name of, I'm just trying to dig them up here. Okay. Getting an uncooperative note-taking tool here. Uh, data data era. So let me just put it in the chat. They're on track to release a full-blown AI travel agent, A to A, in the first or second quarter next year, starting with corporate travel. So presentations will be on diff, recording, etc. I'm going to forward that as soon as that pops out and their slide deck. So they're currently they're doing A2 API. So they have an AI agent that's talking to API, but they're also building and working with a couple of large airline consortiums, including FlyBlue, which is KLM and Air France, to actually have agents now sitting on the service side as opposed to the traveler side. So some fairly impressive stuff. It dovetails with the work that I'm involved in on the travel profile. They have shall we say, a demo version of a profile, whereas we're working on the sort of industrial strength, complex, whole person, including needs a wheelchair kind of stuff. So I think that would be worth getting them in to have a call, or do a presentation here, or even see the presentation and see what interest there would be. I will be setting up a call for them on the diff hospitality travel profile sometime in early September.
Great, great. I didn't do the agenda, so let me create one right here. I know. Okay. I'll just delete everything. It's an open topic. Thank you. Give me a second. Update. Okay. And we're to share the screen. So it is August. It's been difficult. I happen to be available today, but I think next week or next 2 weeks won't be. Welcome, Maki and Kitty, Thomas.
Hello.
Hey, good to
Hi,
see you again.
I'm Anjing and Neil.
Hi. Um, and Shafayet, Amit, welcome as well. Just a quick one that we have a lot of people couldn't, or they're taking vacations or couldn't join in August. So all August meeting are essentially open discussions. And there's no set topic basically. And so welcome to Charmaine, and or I don't know, like sharing news, or you want to bring a topic, or I don't know, any Q&A, anything goes. So thank you, Neil, for that. Are they going to sort of put up something in the diff um, meeting minutes or in information?
Well, yeah. There's certainly going to be minutes over there, and I can grab those things and drop them in.
Sure,
They're
yeah.
all public stuff anyway. I know there'll be a recording up fairly soon, which I mean I have access to all the recordings because I'm co-chair
I
on a
see.
couple.
I
So
see.
I could certainly dig up the recordings. They are going to publish the slides. So as soon as I've got that stuff, I will send it to this group, post it
Or, I
to
mean, another way is just summarize it because we want to document it in a canonical example and potentially useful as a trust framework discussion. So in some kind of summary of that would be useful, right?
I can give you a quick verbal. Basically, their focus has been on in the last year or two is to create an agent-to-agent system for commerce. Their background is travel, so they're focusing on that. They work with some fairly major airlines. So what they're doing at this point is literally booking trips. So they have shall we say, a skeletal traveler profile. You know, what are their preferences, what are their needs. I would observe that some of the stuff is fairly lightweight in terms of, you know, they've got enough of a sample that they can say, okay, let's drive this through, and talking to APIs instead of other agents at this point. So they're doing a bridging mechanism where they're going to have an agent that will use, an interface to
Uses
APIs.
the API.
Right, using APIs to get the functionality. So they're doing things like running stuff in WhatsApp, where you put in, here's my travel requirements, assuming the agent has your profile, and putting those in, and the agent goes out and gets you, okay, here's the kind of flights that meet your criteria, and you can obviously, part of this is you could, set up some negotiation parameters saying, I want you to negotiate for a lowest price, or a price no more than this. I have an urgent flight I need to get tomorrow. So they're talking about generally conversation stuff. They're using, in some cases, they talked a lot about using WhatsApp
So WhatsApp as a front end, you
as a front
basically
end.
chatting with, I see.
Right.
Makes
Right.
sense. Okay.
So they're looking to come up with an A2A specific, like they're setting up their own protocols. It's all DIDCOM based, so likely a large customer for the trust spanning protocol. So they're very keen on that. It's all DID based. So they've absolutely bought that. What I didn't get an answer out of them is like, okay, using DID web, what happens when you start running into other agents that are not DID web based? But at this point they're in demonstratable form, and they do a demo, and it shows you, okay, I'm in WhatsApp, here's the conversation back and forth, and they can do things like go and grab the bookings, saying, okay, I need the booking, and putting it in a travel, shall we say, booking history. Not quite sure, that makes some rather odd ways of doing so. Yeah, we put this in the DID doc, and I'm like, really? So I will get some more technical details. I've got the links for these people. Certainly we'll do a first round conversation with them, looking at the travel profiles perspective and AI in general, in the next couple of weeks, early September. So I definitely would want to invite them to come back and talk to this group, because they're, like I said, they're looking to have a couple of major customers that they're already talking to, first or second quarter of next year. So in terms of actually, following through on the A2A approach, they're aggressively pursuing that, they want to go open standard, right? So that's so it definitely clicked on them saying, I'm wearing a trust over IP and a diff hat. So they're definitely interested in plugging in, because they know that they're not going to sell if they're basing it all on proprietary stuff. So it was pretty ambitious stuff that looked pretty impressive. So I think it'd be worth having a conversation with those guys, and I put their company website in the link. My understanding is this was the first semi-public presentation they were making on what they're doing, because it's travel based and they have connections with some of the key players in the hospitality and travel SIG, as opposed to the working group over on DIF. So, it sounds like it would be, a good thing to pull in to see what they're up to.
Yep. Great if you could make a connection there. I don't know. Eric, hi.
Hi. Say, I just noticed in the news to share section, does anybody have more color on what the agency identity news article is about?
Anybody? I don't have anything other than just reading it, but
Okay.
there is a, I guess, do they have a, are they working on is it IETF draft or something like that?
I don't know. I know that they're working towards some kind of standard. I don't know where.
Yeah. But very networking looking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the problems that we're running into in the C2PA ecosystem is that there isn't a lot of discussion of lasting identity for agents. It's all transactional.
I see. I see. So, you know, the draft I'm working on to use TSP naturally taking the opposite view.
Yeah. Yeah.
Essentially tie into a long-term, you know, we want to make sure the identity is a long-term identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then solve the, you know, it has its own problem, and then you have to solve that set of problem. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I should not have inadvertently maligned what you're doing.
Um, so there's a lot of you know, most of the discussion come back to, I mean, naturally, right? The short-term or token or barrier solutions most people use today
Hmm.
have that set of problems. So that's not a new problem. It's just been there for a long time. And
Right. Right.
the
And for a lot of
argument
use cases, it makes sense, right?
exactly. And this is really coming down to like we were talking about travel. Um, what exactly we the consumers or the providers would mean by an agent, and whether that's you want to have a long-term identity associated with it.
Right. Right.
I think there's a lot of benefit. So
Certainly, the model that was talked about in the presentation I saw today is there very much of the case. Okay, I've got a certificate identity. Let's call it and that transactions are very much session based. So identity could be an identifier that is used, could be just for a period of a trip.
so yeah, I was going to ask, like, in the folks presented to Div. You mentioned there were API gateways in a way. For API access, do they use like a just typical API keys, or like that will still be very much the traditional way of access, right? So yeah.
I certainly got the impression it says we know where we are now. We want to drive this and start building what that looks like on the other side. So that
Yeah.
they're trying to sell the framework to, say, an Air France or a KLM, saying you need to start putting this front end on, so I don't have to call APIs anymore. We're calling your agent, right? But
Yeah.
but their demos are all to show to these major players, look, here's where we've got a one-sided thing, and all we're doing is talking to our APIs. Imagine if the other side had doing that. And a part of the stuff was, somebody, how do you handle someone says, okay, here's my negotiation position. I'm looking for a flight. I need to make a flight on this day, and here's my flight times that I would like, and hotels I would like. They even talk about having, because their main push is looking initially at corporate travel, because that tends to be heavily managed. They appear to have at least a thumbnail or outline of what does a travel policy look like, an AI understandable and specific enough policy in terms of, here's your overall budget, here's what you're allowed to do. You can rent with these companies. You rent cars from this companies. You go say, well, these hotels, you got to go these airlines. Here's the limit in terms of whatever else.
Right.
But they certainly echo in terms of things like, how do I pick a seat on an airplane? Okay, like personal preferences, et cetera, which is a very detailed problem. But they're certainly going in the right direction. And like I said, they're going, full DIDCOM, management of identifiers, PII on a micro sharing. In fact, they came up with a phrase that Drummond Reed talks about. It's the first time I've heard someone else talk about micro sharing. We're only going to share information for a session.
I see. I
so-
see. Eric, you know that we don't have a topic for the August. The whole August is just open discussions.
Right,
Okay.
right.
I hope this is going the right way. But I have a question, Neil. You heard about news about was it Delta who are using
Oh yeah.
AI to micro? You can you to talk about micro shares. They are micro pricing, I guess.
Yeah,
Individual
well,
person for you.
yeah, I did some homework on that, and one of the things is, you know, in other places, Delta going, no, we're not going to do that. No,
Well, there's nothing
so
against it, but
no, but you know, I mean, it's
you
like,
will
you know,
have basically, let's say if the airline's pushing that way, would you come down to like a your agent and their agent that basically, I don't know, what is it like? It becomes a market, right? It's like
yeah. Well,
auctioning.
certainly, I said, okay, I can't believe that I'm gonna, Delta. It's like, I'm sorry, I'm not flying with you because, if I'm in a tight spot, you're gonna say, we know you got to get home. We're going to charge you $5,000 to fly, 200 kilometers. Um, so it certainly got a real pushback, really hard, that I saw in terms
Right.
of the discussions going on the web. So um, I'm not sure where that's going to land because, yeah, for the airlines, it's like, wow, if we got you, how to absolutely maximize the dollar you're willing to spend is maybe in the airline's interest, but not for loyalty, that's for sure. Um, you know, so
Yeah.
certainly the airlines are saying we got to take advantage of this, but it's like, that's a two-edged sword, guys. So we'll see.
Exactly, right? So if they're pushing that way, then I think the royalty program will end. Like, why you want
Well,
them to tell them
that
anything?
apparently that is one of the comments that was made by the CTO
Yeah.
presentation, is that we expect this is going to collapse loyalty programs. Because if I've got a bunch of loyalty cards, your agent could say, okay, maximize my return, or don't max, I don't want to spend loyalty points from here and here. Is like,
Hmm.
I mean, everybody's got to support loyalty points from different players. Otherwise, I was just reading an article in the last week saying airlines don't make their money off flying you anywhere. They make off of the loyalty based credit cards. Right? They're profitable on that, and they're losing their shirt on flying. So yeah, it's going to shake things up, I think, substantially. But yeah, everybody seems to, the people who are in this say, yeah, we know about, you got to be, you have to act in the traveler's interest, or loyal is. So anyway, they're going to do a presentation in the next, and I'll see when the date comes, and I'll advertise it here,
Yeah.
saying, he says loyalty programs as they exist today are really dead. Because once you've got agents talking to agents and negotiating, then that will get quickly optimized in the
I
favor
mean, the royalty program, in a way, is you are also not only like being royal in terms of selection, but also that you are sharing a lot of information, and in return for some benefit. But if in return you are getting, they know how to charge you more, then it's really not going to work, right?
well, it's going to quickly be a race to the bottom, and say, well, okay, I'm going to have my agent go talk, go find me a price where I'm not being gouged. Well, it's so.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, as everybody sort of predicted, travel is going to be, it's a focus for a lot of, and these guys were full digital wallet, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So not, off in the distance, they definitely want to fit into that model. And they even talked about agents in some cases acting as a proxy ZKP, in the sense of, if they're going to share information, they're going to say, okay, do I have your authorization to take the information out of your VC, wrap it up? I will sign it as a trusted delegatee,
Mhm.
and hand that to somebody else saying, yes, this has been vetted. This is, here's the information you want, but I'm not handing you the whole verifiable credential or whatever information. So they seem to be headed in that direction as well. So interesting.
I think also we discussed before the dynamic and the static data in terms of whenever, for example, you would like to, request the customer to update their profile in certain instances, because things can keep on evolving from an experience to another, and every now and then you would need to have a pulse check whether the information is is the same for that specific instance or specific experience. For instance, someone traveling for during a certain period with certain conditions, and then potentially with the second travel, he has fully recovered. So you would need to be very selective in terms of getting updates with respect to the user profile. So I think the agents can help a lot with also doing pulse checks every now and then whether the profile is up to date or not, by requesting the customer to fill in specific details as per their condition during that time. But I think again, like it will be a pretty complex process, because you need to be very selective, and depending on the experience, like what kind of data you would want to have as static versus dynamic data.
Yeah, no, they certainly brought that up. And one of the things that certainly I'm expecting in the travel profile standpoint is that you are going to have subsets of your profile, right? And so what you're going to do is you're going to have, okay, this is my personal, this is my business. That much they understand immediately, because you may have constraints by your employer or by your customers in terms of what you're allowed to spend. But they also said, I may have a slightly different profile if I'm, skiing versus scuba diving, and I want to present different things. So that, fully expecting that to be the case, in terms of, things modifying and also mining your actual behavior in terms of what you actually purchased and saying, okay, you've updated your profile. That suggests you've changed your preferences in terms of restaurants or something else. So certainly going in that, that was the expectation. I would certainly see is the profile is going to be constantly updated. But again, the intent is that a service provider is the information that's shared on a per trip basis is going to be the continually updated profile.
And ZKP, you would need to ensure always you're requesting, only the information you would want to proceed with the experience. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, they literally said micro sharing, and I thought that's interesting. Has Drummond been talking to these guys, because he was the one who coined it? But yeah, that's exactly it. So and that is a general approach to PII, is you only hand it out on a transaction or a session basis, and then once the decision process is finished and the booking is made, then all parties can throw that information away because they no longer need it, which keeps everybody safe and avoids the GDPR kind of problems. Anyway, so.
There's also a new update, I think, in terms of SB 942, so the California AI Transparency Act. So I think that is going to be launched by January 2026. So, you would need to declare, what part of your generated content is, AI generated versus, human. So I think there will be fines, $5,000 a day, I think, for those who violate it once it's enacted. So I think that's also one of the issues with going forward whenever producing content. So there needs to be a lot of transparency, at least in California now. But I think over the long run it will be as well. Hopefully, also applied across different states. Just to give those who are working, for example, on the micropayments, their fair share whenever those data or those content are being released and used by consumers. So more of protecting your rights, which is really good, a good step.
You got details that you could put on the chat on that?
Yeah, let me look at that, and I'll post it shortly. Yeah.
one thing that didn't come up in discussion and is certainly an issue is how do you verify with the traveler that in fact if preferences and needs, support needs are being detected by AI in terms of your actual bookings and information that you provide indirectly. How does that get into the structured preferences and needs profile? And how do you verify that with the actual traveler? So that was something they acknowledged was not something they'd worked out yet. But certainly the concept of personal preferences and needs being something that is not structured data, it's all left up to the AI agent to collect that and use that information. It was funny, I asked ChatGPT 4 and 5, okay, so what would you recommend? A structured profile with clear database schemas and information, or is that something you leave up to the agent to make up internally and work with other agents? And the answer it came back with is you cannot count on any AI agent to interpret circumstance, evidence, or even stated whatever in the same way. So if you're not capturing that kind of information as structured, human readable and analyzable data by other machines, and if you can't exchange it on that format, then you're probably in trouble. In other words, the chance for misinterpretation is pretty high. So because there is certainly a lot of discussion with people in the hospitality and travel industry, and say, hey, AI can do anything. Why don't we just leave it up to them and let it figure it out? So that was one of the answers that came back that we presented to people, saying, when the AI itself tells you don't trust us, maybe you need to take it seriously.
Any other comments? Any other discussions? I haven't looked too much, Neil, into that structure versus not structure quite yet, but that's good to hear you did some experiment.
Well, yeah, it gets really subtle, and certainly just having it generate. I'm sitting here, I'm playing with ChatGPT and saying, capture this, remember that, whatever else. And I'm constantly having to take the last output and say, this is where you started from. We agreed that this is the right structure, and yet your next, variation on that, you completely changed it. They go, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that, is the answer you get back. So it tends to be very fluid in understanding what is, no, you have to live within that structure. And, it said, please give me very detailed instructions on what I'm allowed to change. So,
So that would be I think you were referring to trying to remember the term they use. Yeah, that's a common problem of losing track or wasn't able to focus on for long. But that was supposedly
I think you froze. Yeah.
you must have been about to say something that AI didn't like. All right, well, see what goes. So anybody, I'll fill in for Wenjing till he comes back. Anything? Oh, okay. So I assume he's going to come back in 2 seconds. Aaron, anything you want to bring onto the table in terms of what your motivation was to come in and join us today?
Hey, good day. I am kind of at the periphery of this group. I just came to listen to something interesting, so I'm not bringing anything to the table right now. I haven't engaged in quite a few months, and I'll turn off my audio at this point.
No problem. Anyone else while we're waiting for Wenjing to come back?
Yeah, maybe more of an update. I think a lot of us, or at least a number of us, is aware that there is a charter being prepared for an AI agents. Neil, isn't it? I think by Eric. So so hopefully, we'll have also a task force under the this working group. So it would help us, explore topics around agents. Yeah.
All I can guess is Wenjing must be in a different location and doesn't have reliable connectivity or something like that.
Yeah, probably.
Well, just as a topic of conversation, one of the things I have to wonder is, given that AI agents tend to wander a little off track, whether at some point the right answer is going to be something like the space shuttle used. They had 3 different computers that were slightly different, such that given the same, shall we say, meta programming, that you needed to have at least 2 out of 3 agree before taking an action. And I'm wondering if, for the purposes of, keeping AI agents honest, is to have not only different instances of agents, but perhaps even different technologies for agents, and having 2 or 3 of those working on a given problem, such that they would sort of, between the 3 of them, self-detect gross misunderstandings of what the intention was by the human in the loop, to ensure that things did not drift off in the wrong direction. In other words, you're processing the same information 3 different ways. You've got a potential for catching at least some of the big changes. Eric.
Yeah, so there's a related problem that I've been contemplating in the content provenance space, which is around the idea that an agent might overrun its authority. So for instance, if I am working with a content creation agent and I ask it to create one photograph and attest that I was the one who requested that, what if it does create that one photograph and then continues to use that authority to create another 500 that are, not what I asked for and sign them in my name as well? And how can we prevent that kind of attack from happening? Or misbehavior, shall we say, on the part of an agent?
Yeah, that's really interesting. There was also one point mentioned by Karen in the C2PA that, for example, let's say you have an employee who has, some AI agents, deployed to conduct some activities, and then suddenly he leaves the organization, and those agents keep on, delivering under his name as well. So I think a lot of issues, with ongoing use, as well as once, you're out of control, or you left the agent to perform activities while you exited an organization. So yeah, I think that's a pretty interesting area to explore the risks, and what kind of mitigation actions would need to be in place.
Yeah, something similar there, Eric, and Mackie, was looking at sharing of a photograph or a voice. I'm going to a hotel, I'm gonna as part of my profile, I'm going to share my voice, speaking my name. That could also be used for biometric identification. When you check in, it's like this. And one of the things that came through that would tie, I would suggest straight into that is you're going to hand out like a one-time ticket, and you're going to say, okay, you can come back and ask me for this, within say a 3-week period, but I'm only granting you access to this on a one-time basis. You're going to have to come back and ask every time you're going to use that. You've got to ask me or my agent whether you're allowed to do that. So micro authorization, so that you've got so for example, over a period of a trip, you're staying at the hotel for a week. On check-in, you say, okay, here it is, and you can use this the first time I step up to the desk or something. But you're going to forget that until again you say, okay, we need you to verify who you are each time, and it makes the request again, saying, okay, you gave me a ticket saying I can ask again and again, but please reauthorize me to check your face or check your voice. So I got the same kind of flavor of that kind of thing from the presentation I saw earlier today. Is the concept of you're only going to grant stuff on a micro basis, with the right to come back, right? So you're streamlining the process so the reaccess doesn't have to go through a say ground up trust establishment each time. So it'll be a limited reuse. We'll call it a limited reuse token. Does that make sense, Art?
Yeah, I'm just sort of puzzling through in, that's limited by a period of time, right? And I'm trying to figure out if there's a way to express separately a limit on the frequency of use, and I haven't come up with one.
Yeah, I guess it would have to be on the kind of, well, I mean, part of it is the purpose. So it's you can use it for this purpose, right? So if it's manufacturing something like 1,000 different images in 25 milliseconds, it's the purpose here is for the generation of an image, and the limit is either a number of instances or it's a time window. So that's an actual point. Yeah, that certainly makes a lot of sense.
So Eric, I was actually reviewing some of the older literature or work on this issue of scope or overscoping for OAuth-based systems, and also the lack of ways to sort of provide a intent, like where you can use it, right?
Right.
And if you get into like frequency or how do you keep things around, it seems like that's fundamentally missing in a lot of these schemes. And that's, to me, that would be one of the reason like why we needed a a different approach, not basically simply following the OAuth model, because a lot of people want to expand or extend some part of OAuth, trying to incorporate these features in. I don't know whether you see like a successes in that direction. I very much want, I feel personally, I feel convinced that we need a new approach, but I want to see whether there are methods within OAuth's overall framework that can work.
I'm skeptical. I haven't formed a hard no on it, but I think the concern is when we talk about delegating authority that it would be really, really easy to overstep that delegation and to overuse it. And OAuth is, as I understand it anyway, a time-based protocol. So, I give you permission to do this thing until, Friday at noon, and, go to
And
town between,
within,
and you'd know darn well, an agent
yeah.
that's gone off the rails could produce 1 million images between now and tomorrow at noon.
And within that time, really, there's no restraint on how you use it, or
That's
non-revocation, none of this, right?
No, right, exactly. And that's the thing that I'm afraid of. Maybe I'm over concerned about it, but that's, I
Because
kind
this is
of have to do that.
remind me the old movie Casablanca, where they were chasing these particular what they call it, there's this travel permit, right? Exit permit or whatever. And as long as you hold over those pieces of paper, you can leave.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that sort of falls into what this outfit Daemon talked about, which is having a specification.
Yeah.
Saying, here are the business rules. Here's here's the scoping rules that this thing applies to, which would like in terms of a travel policy, right? So it'd be interesting to see what that comes out look. And I'd be willing to bet.
But those things going to be very vague though. Like, for Eric's example, frequency, would that be, can you really specify like, or like intent? How do you express that even, let alone enforce it?
I don't think there's a way. At least the only thing I can come up with is if you do something on a blockchain where, I give the agent, 5 credits to generate, images in
Ah,
my name, and when those are
a
spent, they're done.
contract, yeah, a
Yeah,
blockchain.
exactly. But anything that's OAuth based or time based is easily abused.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, so certainly, I mean, there are extremely detailed corporate legal document written travel restrictions for corporate travel. I mean, that's
Right.
nothing new.
But
Yeah.
the resolution of those are like complicated with lawyers and
Right. When it's, simple, delegation of, a personal identity, I don't know who's there that you can sue for more than $10,000, as Daryl likes to say.
So the only thing like practically possible would be some kind of a system, blockchain or otherwise, that implements a type of those executable contract or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? That is possible, but it's really kind of hard to see how that can be widely deployed.
I agree. The other mitigation I can think of is to have the requester, the agent, if you will, or tool that's creating something, sign independently, and a human in the loop sign after the fact separately.
Mm.
Which has some usability concerns, but it adds to the assurance that the human actually knew what was being created on their behalf.
Well,
Okay, so that would be I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so certainly one of the things that came up, and this was one of the technical questions I had for these guys over at Datera, is they talked about, I won't get into the details, but it's like they're talking about doing extensive logging. Right. So all that's going on in their thing, and that's a trail that, for learning, would also be something that, a third agent, secondary agent can monitor this and say, wait a minute, I'm looking at the same document you are in terms of your travel restrictions, and what you're doing doesn't meet. So certainly they saw that as essential. Both for learning
Okay.
about behavior and also in terms of governance, is to insist that the A2A conversation have a lot of logging for all parties.
Okay.
So I mean, that's you look at, I mean, the concept of a black box. You look at uh, IoT, right? It'd be good to get what's her name on the call. From we know who you're
Nikki, I think.
Yeah, Nikki. Yeah, Nick.
Yeah.
Definitely, Nikki is probably going to talk, because that has been an absolute key for accident prevention, lawsuits, whatever else, like train
Mhm.
systems. You've got logging. Did that train actually exceed? Did it ignore the signal, et cetera, et cetera? So
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of accident stuff, that concept of everything logs extensively. Everything, and whether it's sitting, for retrieval, and it's got a 1 or 2 day buffer that overflows for that level of detail, that's been standard in that, and real-time industrial kind of stuff for forever. So it's not inconsistent, and it's not with that kind of approach. So
So that argues for TSP. Hey.
There you go.
yeah, what can I say? So
Yeah.
So absolutely, I think there's a great deal of good things to say about having that level of security at down at that level. So, and signatures, like I said, granting authority to say sign on a third party's behalf, like instead of having to have a verifiable credential with all the variants and all the ZKPs in it.
Yeah,
authorize
you
something that's-
want logging with signatures attached on
Yeah.
that can later on still validate and check. Yeah.
Yeah, so the case in point, if you've got a complex series of RUO or TEAN and this and this and that or that, is a question that's almost impossible to do that with cryptographic ZKPs. But if you say, okay, you as an agent are authorized to make that sort of, let's call it formal logic, answer yes or no questions, I could see that as a delegated authority.
Okay.
Because too many of those things don't lend themselves to simple mathematical proofs.
Yeah.
I think also it will be important to have, like end of the day reports, or, perhaps every, like periodic reports to see what kind of actions have been performed in your absence, or those delegated actions as well that you have, provided, leverage for the agent to perform. So getting at least, the summary of results and what has been performed. I think this will increase accountability, at least from the, if it's an employee versus employer, side. So at least, they would look in terms of whether any of those actions constituted any breach or issues that needs to be corrected. Like even if you give it, for example, rights to sign on your behalf. So I think it will be very important to have, some sort of governance over this through reporting and continuous review and improvement.
Well, just leading off what you just said there, I mean, certainly if you look at, LLMs, which are looking largely at bulk static data. So if you now turn those streams into, learning material that, something goes in and looks at, say, okay, this stream of information, it's got up some use cases, and whatever else, have a look at it and say that, yep, we've had a look at this, it's clean, and then shove that into the learning system that gets fed back into, the agent's model. So let's call it event or supply chain tracking. In other words, it's a continuous stream now. It's not snapshots every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Or whatever else, right?
I think also in terms of, like big organizations, like usually they can tie everything to one account, like they usually do sometimes, an employee would have a central account tied to all of the applications they're using. Whenever, for example, an employee is exiting the firm, then automatically those agents will be switched off. So I think, having it through a central account, managing it through a central account will be a great idea, especially for very large organizations, because massive number of agents be deployed, sometimes by employee as well. So I think just to manage it safely, there will be a need for a central account.
Well, I don't think there's any. I haven't heard a lot of. You've got delegated authority, but you've got central authority control, right? So here are the rules that are set, and there's a consistent set. In other words, if you've got 16 parties all determining your travel profile, or travel restrictions, your travel policy, then you've got sort of anarchy. So central determination and distributed execution.
Yeah, I think this is more than a travel profile. So it will include any kind of other activities, for example, like bots being deployed to conduct activities, your day-to-day activities, whether it's related to sending, for example, emails or replying to emails, or, conducting any kind of report preparation and stuff like that. So I think, a lot of use cases could emerge out of this, and how to manage it in a central way, just to ensure, whenever someone is departing or even going on a leave, that there will be some sort of guardrails applied, whether, for example, deactivation for a certain period or not. So I think the good thing, like they did it successfully with, the usuals. For example, if you have a Microsoft central account, you can tie a lot of things to it, and whenever, for example, someone is exiting, you can deactivate. So I think adding this element of AI agents to it will also help improve review and enhancement, as well as if there's any issues timely, you can shut off those agents.
Well, certainly one thing that came up, just what you said, Mackie, just tweaked something, is that the expectation in the discussion over at the travel side was it's not just when you book a trip. A huge amount of the decisions and interactions that are going to benefit is, as you change your mind in the middle of, deciding going to a restaurant, you go to a different, saying, oh, we don't like this restaurant. What else have you got? And please, I've got these allergies, whatever else. The in-travel experience, it's a continuous interaction at just about any point. Anytime you're making a decision, particularly in a place and a time you're not an expert, you've never been here before, you've never dealt with XYZ before, it's not a punctuated every couple of days event. It's just more of a continuous process. So that I think is and if you can do that for travel, 24/7 for 2 weeks, how much is that different from dealing with everyday life? So got 4 minutes to the top of the hour.
Correct. Yes. Yes.
You got any other? So you don't have you got a clock at least that works, Wenjik?
I have a battery, so I just plug into my a router, and it's up running. So it's good. I'm good. I'm good for a couple of hours probably.
So any other last minute offerings for today?
Thank you very much. It was a great session, and looking forward to the next one next week. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much.
And pay your power bill there, Wenjik.
I think they're doing some work today. I remember they were sending me warnings. They're doing some work in the neighborhood, so the power's gone.
All right, take care.
All right. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.